27th, 2018. My name is Bill McCamley. I'm a state representative from Las Cruces and Mesilla here in southern New Mexico with your legislative update for the day. Went up and back to Santa Fe yesterday for a meeting of the Investment and Pensions Oversight Committee, and there's going to be a lot of adjustments probably made this upcoming year in terms of pensions, which is retirement payment for state workers, which includes teachers and everyone else who works for the state, like cops, firefighters, social workers, that sort of thing. And as people live longer and yet generally don't work longer, that makes pensions a lot harder to pay for. And so there's always some kind of situation where people have to make sacrifices, right? Either the government has to put more money in from the budgets that we have, or workers either need to pay more or see some of their benefits cut. And, either dropping benefits every year, dropping cost of living increases, dropping spouses, that sort of thing. And so there are two main pension situations here in New Mexico. The PERA, the Public Employee Retirement Association, is for pretty much everybody but the educational sector, and then there's the Educational Retirement Board, which is teachers and everybody else that works in public schools. So both of those organizations are working with their constituent groups in the legislature to modify the pension activities moving forward. Now, something that a lot of libertarian right-wing groups generally tend to want is to move away from a pension system to a 401k system. The problem with that is we've seen that really starts increasing income inequality here in New Mexico as folks have to rely more and more on the stock market. And there's a real movement by public sector unions to stay away from that because, it makes it easier on the state, but it also decreases the amount of money retirees have. And that's the reliance on the stock market is something I want to talk about next. A lot of these pension groups rely on stock market investments as a whole to help bring in money to supplement the payments that get put in over time by retirees. And all of these groups, both these groups plus the Retiree Healthcare Authority, which is another group that helps with retirees and healthcare before they get to Medicare, are basically signaling that the stock market is probably going to drop sometime in the next year or two. And we're already seeing it now. The stock market is actually down this year overall. And a correction is when things kind of go up and up and up for a while and then drop 15 to 20%. And that's what people are kind of predicting sometime in the next 18 to 24 months. As a state, though, this is a much bigger issue because when you combine that with a drastic drop in oil prices, it's dropped a third of its value since the beginning of October. And remember, nearly 35% of our budget relies on this oil and gas industry, relies on these prices. It really creates a tough problem for the state, and there's a likelihood that the United States goes back into recession. So as a state representative who's leaving but has had to deal with these real problems with our budget, there's some things that the next legislature and hopefully the next governor will be looking to do moving forward. So the first thing we have to do is we have to continue to work to diversify our economy away from the two things that we rely on now, which is oil and gas, where money comes in through the southeast part of the state, around Hobbs and Roswell and Carlsbad, and the northwest part of the state around Farmington, though that's mostly natural gas and not oil. We've got to make sure we're investing and providing programmatic support to film, the tech transfer industry, which is when you do research at either our labs or our universities and that turns into jobs. Green energy, wind and solar, how do we figure out a way to increase that and monetize it, both in terms of jobs and tax revenue? Aerospace. Both the spaceport down here in Las Cruces and a lot of the research that is going on in the Albuquerque area on new types of aerospace technologies, and border trade, which is something that has actually been a real strong suit for New Mexico. How do we continue to make sure that increases and diversify those benefits so they go across the state? And as we're going into a recession, how do we help people? A lot of times when we talk about recessions, it's all about dollars as some separate thing. How do we help people? Well, the first thing we have to do is provide educational opportunities for those folks that want to get 21st century jobs. And there's two main areas for that: STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and two-year degrees. Need more plumbers, electricians, medical technicians. We have a lot of folks without any kind of degree or certificate in New Mexico, and that's just not going to hack it for a 21st century economy. Look, we've got to invest in early childhood education, and there's not basically a better thing that we can do, which is proven by studies over and over and over again in different cities and states around the country, that make sure that our young folks that are born and that 3 to 4 year old education, that really helps them moving forward and helps their parents moving forward. And lastly, we need to provide for people for their health care, and there's going to be a couple of things moving forward in the next legislative session, including a Medicaid buy-in program, a real public option for insurance, and state protections for pre-existing conditions. Before Obamacare, remember, the biggest cause of bankruptcy in the United States was people going into debt for health care. We've got to help them out with that. So that's really what I got today. Thanks again for watching this, as always. And if you have questions, comments, or concerns on these or any other issues, I stand ready to answer them, and hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. Thanks.